All right. So this we're just gonna record for the portion of the Get It Done campaign part of our meeting. And Lisa introduced herself, but I just want to shout out that we are very, very lucky to have Lisa. Her expertise in education funding and all of these things is just above and beyond, and she is able to explain things in ways that my liberal arts brain understands. So I just want to shout out Lisa, and I'm going to make you a co-host if you so you could share if you'd like. And hand
Uh,
it over to you.
Thank you so much, Don. I am always thrilled to do anything PTA related. I am so proud to be a part of it and knowing the legacy of activism and policy success that comes when we all stand together. Um, Don, I want to just make sure I know how much time I have so I don't go over, and you're muted.
I said we have a packed meeting, but this is important. So how much time are you thinking?
Just, you know, we'll see how it goes.
All
This
right.
has not been presented all that many times, so I will do my best to keep it moving and keep it at the level of detail that will stay within bounds. So I'm going to share my screen as Dawn said. This is the work of the Get It Done campaign. And first, I just introduce myself as, in addition to the being on the state board, I have been the executive director of Great Education Colorado for almost 10 years, and I'm one of the founders. So I've been working on this since my 27-year-old was in pre-K. Just a quick, for those of you who don't know about Great Education Colorado, our mission is that we harness the power of grassroots activism and coalitions and networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And we are working toward a vision that is so much like PTA's, that because of public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. So what are we trying to do here? Great Education Colorado has been working on the issue of underfunding of our schools for over 20 years. What we're trying to do with the Get It Done campaign is to take a step back and revisit some of the things that we've been assuming, this kind of learned helplessness. People saying, yeah, I know we need more funding for schools, but I don't know what to tell you. It's just we can't pass anything at the ballot. And what we're trying to do is bring everybody together into being this optimistic place that we can, in fact, get it done. And we're trying to move from the chronic underfunding to fully funded schools. And from this place of the legislators saying, well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I wish we could fix it, but so we are moving to getting it done. Our plan is really, there's kind of a 2-year plan, and it's that we've been preparing for the adequacy studies, which actually tell us how much funding we need for our schools to allow them to meet the standards that our legislature has set. And we're working on building local teams to advocate about those adequacy studies, to get our legislators to understand what the recommendations of those studies mean to the school districts in their legislative districts. And we're working to get them to take action, to look at where we are now, look at where we're supposed to be, where we should be, where we as a state have said our values are, that we want all students to be this successful, and how do we get from one step to the next. And so that's our focus right now, is really taking this once in a lifetime opportunity. The adequacy studies, this is the first time in Colorado history that the state said, okay, let's not be intentionally ignorant about what's really what are the needs of our students are. Let's do a study. This was in 2023. They commissioned a study, actually two studies on adequacy, basically meaning they wanted to know what resources are necessary to ensure that all students reach the standards and all schools can do the work that the legislature has stated that they have to do. And so the state, most states, when they're looking at school finance, do these studies because you don't want to do it in the dark. You really do want to know what resources are necessary. So the bottom line, I'm going to tell you down the road, and maybe you've heard this already, how much it would cost to do all of to provide all the resources necessary to meet the needs of all our students. That is not the important piece of information coming from the adequacy studies, however. The important issue is, what is it that we need to provide in terms of opportunities and supports to our teachers and our students in order to make sure that our students succeed. So I'm going to just summarize. There were two studies done. One was about outputs. The other is about inputs. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on the input one because it makes more sense. It is more down to earth in explaining what it is that we need to be spending new resources, new funding on. So APA, that's the name of the company that did and they're national, both companies that did these studies are national leaders. The inputs that were the assumptions made by talking with professionals, by looking at studying successful what does EB stand for? EB, I'm looking at you. Anyway, there are two different methodologies even within the input to really figure out what those resources are. And what they concluded was that when it comes to individual attention, we need smaller class sizes. There should be K-3 class sizes should be 15, and after third grade, it should be 25 on average, because obviously, especially in high schools, you have some classes that have a lot more kids, can have more kids, and some that need to be smaller, but an average of 25. And in addition, there are minimum levels of staffing for extras, for specials. It's about 20% of your staff should be doing the music, art, PE, whatever in the early grades, and about 33% in high school, which recognizes that we need to meet the needs of so many different kinds of students and get them ready for a whole panoply of career and college readiness. The APA study found that there should be at least one tutor in every school, and more where you have students who are living in poverty or are learning English, etc. And then additional minimum staffing levels for counselors, for nurses, for librarians. There should be a media specialist in every school, for instance. Something that is not currently true. It recommends extra funding in the base, just extra funding for technology to keep the technology up to date, and to promote the teacher's ability to keep up with it and teach to it. And you think about AI, that's incredibly important. Additional funding for curriculum and for after school, also extended day and summer school for students who are at risk and need that extra attention. So that's just sort of thinking about your own schools. You can think, what would that mean? What would that mean if your K-3 had 15 kids? What if the music and art and were provided by the state because we actually have standards in music and art, and because that's what um, gives kids that connection, that desire to come to school, the finding themselves and finding their passion. The other really big issue that came up in both studies is that we are underfunding our support for teachers. We need to both pay teachers more, and we need to pay more teachers, in addition to all the other adults in the building that I talked about just a minute ago. And there's that quote from AIR. What you may already know is that Colorado has literally the biggest gap, what they call the wage gap, or it's not the sacrifice. Anyway, it's the biggest gap between what teachers make and what they could make in other professions for which they are qualified. And so when teachers, it's the wage penalty, that's what it's called. When teachers decide to stay in the profession, they are doing so with the largest, giving up more income than in any other state in the country. Now, I will go through these kind of quickly because I want to be sure I leave time for questions and all your other work. But the first thing that the APA study, well, both studies did, was you figure out what is the appropriate base funding. Now, there's base funding and then there's factors. The base funding is supposed to be the amount of money necessary to meet the needs of a student with no special needs in a district with no special characteristics, not a rural school, and the student who that's just the basic, no additional resources necessary to meet their needs. APA found that we need to increase by $3,600. AIR said we need to increase that by $1,100. So that's the base. That's the idea of what a base is supposed to do, is to provide the basic for every student. The next thing, the next part of the formula is called factors. And what the factors do are to try to make things more equitable by making sure that there's additional funding for students who need additional resources in order to succeed. If they have learning disabilities, if they grew up in poverty, if they are learning English, if they are gifted and talented, what is it that's necessary? What the APA study found was that on top of an adequate base, you need to add 35% more. Those students may need more tutoring. They may need to have an extended day. They may need summer school. They may need somebody who is a specialist in special education, whatever. And so that was so it's 35%. AIR, which increased the base by not as much, and this will make sense in just a second. When they increased it, they didn't increase the base so much, but they said, you know what, you need to double the base funding in order to meet the needs of kids who have grown up in poverty. So that's what that looks like. This one on the left, that is what we are funding right now. So our base of $8,726 is already way too low, like by $3,000. And on top of that, we give about 12% extra. So you can see that what we're spending is not sufficient to meet the needs of students. This is the new School Finance Act, which increases it leaves the same base. It does not increase the base, but it does increase the at-risk factor to 25%. So it's better, but it's still not where here is the adequate base of $12,000 and 35% on top of that. And then there is the AIR study that said, well, the base should be 9,800, but we got to double that. And so you can see they go over $20,000 to meet the needs of students. And again, this is about what kind of counselors do you need, and especially with the mental health issues that we've got going on. This is it's critical to meet these needs. And if we do it in the early years, there will be less students who have the needs in later years. Um, so I want to stop there before I can show these same graphs for all of them, but I want to just make sure there's no questions about what this depicts, and just sort of the big picture. I'll trust you, Dawn, because I can't see.
I'm keeping an eye on the raised hands in the chat. More. Sorry, that's my husband's bringing me dinner too. Um, are we have any questions? Not seeing any. All right.
Okay, so just moving on, I'm going to go through.
Lori had a question.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't find my hand to raise.
Oh, sorry.
Uh, What do you account for that big difference in the APA and the AIR studies?
That is a great question. So the AIR study based on outcomes is, it's more regression analysis, and it's more statistical. It's looking at if we have these outcomes, and I'll be honest that I am much more familiar with the input models. But it's looking at, here's where we are, and this is where we need to go. And there are a number of different ways that they can sort of analyze for each kind of students where there is more success, where they are able to meet where students do better and meet standards. They're figuring out what level of funding is necessary to make that possible for all students. So it is much more mathematical than it is about what are the resources. And that's why I gravitate to the APA, because it makes a lot more sense. And it's not that it's a black box, but you do have, the way in which they figure out the trajectory and what's necessary if you're here, how much more do you need to get there for different kinds of students. It's just a different methodology.
Wasn't that professional judgment?
No, the input is, there are two, the professional judgment, and I am just not going to come up with it. I think it's EB.
Evidence-based.
Evidence-based. Thank you, Evie. So those two are both input-based, and APA did both methods. So the professional judgment was, they had panels all over the state, different size schools, different size districts, different age groups, and all electives versus all the language arts, etc. And they said, what do you need first with that base? If you have a student who is coming into you at grade level pretty much, what do you need to make sure that you can get them to the next level on all standards in a district without that doesn't have economy of scale issues, for instance. So they really did have all of this is available on the Colorado School Finance Project website. You can actually see all of the studies, and I can make sure you all get that link. But so that professional judgment is saying, what are those resources? They weren't asking how much would you need. They were, how much money would it take to have what you need? They were saying, how often do you need to replace the curriculum? And considering, how many kids should be in a classroom, what all of those specific issues, and then building in the right number of adults. So that was based on the professional judgment. And then there's evidence-based, which is these are studies that show that these kinds of resources result in these kind of outcomes. And then they kind of melded them together into their recommendations. So just quickly going through here, we're English language learners. APA says from 16% to 52%, depending on how fluent a child is at any time. So kids would go through levels that would decrease as they become more fluent. The amount of money that you need to add decreases as the student becomes more fluent in English. And AIR just said 120%. So again, I won't go through them all, but you can see we give 8% currently. The new School Finance Act is 25, and then you can see that bigger base, the smaller base, but more than doubling. Special education, APA says 44% from mild to 110 moderate. And then for students with profound needs, they say that shouldn't be in the formula. That should be just paid by the state. Like the added additional costs of meeting those needs should just come from the state directly. And AIR
Yeah.
came up with this 128% for on average. So I think I
And
have the,
Dan has a question.
okay.
Yeah, I was just more theoretical here. Why did they do adequacy? Like when we have the smartest state in the country, why are we just trying to have adequate kids? Like why didn't we shoot for like, you know, Connecticut level funding to like compete with those schools?
That is a great question. And once if we were at adequacy, we would still be below the funding of the states that are doing the best, performing the best, like Maryland and New Jersey. Adequacy is kind of a weird term of art because you're right. Who wants to be adequate? They are also called costing out studies. For that reason, that adequate just has this sort of but it really is about the scientific method of it is just that this is what the state says they expect of our students. This is what they expect of our schools. It's no longer our school system is no longer, we have to give equal opportunity to everybody without regard to their needs as individual students. Now we say every student should succeed. So these studies are based on not what would be the best possible outcome, not that every student would be at the, advanced level. The scientific methodology is really about, let's just say, this is what the legislature says they want. So if you've raised the bar to this level, then these are the resources that you're going to need to make sure that all students can meet those, that, clear the bar. So it's a great question, Dan, and it would be an amazing thing if we could get to adequacy. And once that's done, then we can start saying we want to provide our students with the best education in the country. But this is really Colorado based. This is very specific for Colorado. So here's the bottom line, and this is what I wait till the end. The news reports about it all went directly to this, $3.5 to $4.1 billion annually when fully implemented. And that kind of gives legislators an easy out of like, oh, we don't have that kind of money. So let's put it on the shelf. And that is what the Get It Done campaign that I'm going to talk about is all about, is saying, you wanted to know what it was, you paid for these. We want to know, we want to live our values and say that if this is what we're asking of our schools, our teachers and our students, that we should be providing it. If we mean that we want every student to thrive, then this is what we need to do. So the 3.5 billion is actually the APA study, and the 4.1 billion is what comes from the AIR study. When you add it all together, And again, that is not where we want to focus. And the conversation we want to have is, what are those resources? Think about what it would mean to a new teacher if they had an instructional coach, because the study actually says you need to have instructional coaches in every school. You know, would we have kept more teachers in the classroom at all ages if their workload was not, you know, was 25 kids in a class instead of 30 or 35? So those are the stories that we want to start getting across to our legislators. And so that's what we're talking about. We prepared for the adequacy study release. We've got a video. I don't know if we'll have time to show it, but I will if we do. We're working on local teams. Would love for all of you to think about being a part of that. Especially there are some targeted legislators who are really important and are influential in getting other people to see the importance of these things. This is a bipartisan issue. The decision to fund, to commission and fully fund these studies was bipartisan. And so that's what we really want to work on. And our goal is to say, this year, we just want you to figure out how to proceed, what we can do to come up with the blueprint for student success. A new plan, a long-term plan to get us from where we are right now, which is $1,500, $2,000 behind the national average per pupil, and with all that inadequacy that we just looked at, to get from where we are to where we need to go. It's not in a year. We're not going to go from where we are to add 3.5 to 4.1 billion. It's over time. And so what's that plan going to look like? And then next year we can be working on that plan and making sure that it gets put into law. And then we're going to need to fund it. But now is not the time to be figuring that out. We are working with a lot of people on how we might go to the voters and say, do you value education? Here is what it's going to take. Here's how we're going to go from where we are to where our laws say we want to be. And so that's the plan. And right now we're building a coalition. PTA has been a foundational partner from the very beginning, not just of Get It Done, but all the way back for a decade in all our efforts to get adequate funding of schools, adequate, equitable, and sustainable. So we're working on this Get It Done campaign. We've got the videos. We do presentations. I can do presentations with more detail, less detail, but really trying to bring people into feeling confident that they understand the issues and can advocate to friends to bring them along, and advocate to their legislators to say, hey, we just want to sit down with you, talk about what these adequacy study means, why you can't put it on a shelf, and what it would mean to your constituents, your school districts. So that's what we're working on. And building those teams, the first thing, as I said, is that we're going to work on pulling people together. I think I've covered all this stuff. We're hoping to have an advocacy day in April when some decisions will get made about what kinds of things will the legislature be tackling, what policy issues will they tackle between the end of this general session, which is May, until the beginning of the next one in January. So that's what we're working on. And our goal is to make sure that you have all, that doesn't look good. That you have all of the tools that you need to feel really confident going to your advocates. And I'm going to see if that will come back. All right. I'm actually going to make sure that I get this, because really would love for you. Our advocates network is tomorrow. You got a couple of people, number of people who come all the time. Looking at you, Lori, Evie. Let's see. Come on. Uploads. There we go. All right, one of these things is not like the other. I got to put the right one in. Looks like it's this one. Didn't like that. All right. It is defying my my wishes. But
So-
you can sign up for the Get It Done campaign on the top one, attend Advocates Network. And if you go to our website, greateducation.org, and go to, I think in resources, you can request a presentation. And I'll put that link in the chat. And I will stop sharing.
I put
Unless there-
the top link in the chat to sign up for Get It Done, and I put on the email I sent last Thursday, there's the link to the registration for the Advocates Network. But I don't have the presentation requesting link.
I will get that right now. So, I hope that you will consider doing a presentation, asking for a presentation. It is one of the best ways to really engage people and, let them ask questions and understand the connection between what's happening in their school, maybe what they're raising funds for, or knowing that the district is talking about closing schools, to really make that connection to, there's a reason that we are not that our schools are not fully funded, that we feel like we have to keep fundraising. And it is that there's a structural problem, and that's the School Finance 101 presentation that you can request to just understand, why has this happened? How did we get here? How do we move forward? But it's really great to have people in person asking those questions.
But just gonna shout out, this is a great effort to get involved in, and you will be supported in your efforts. You're not gonna, there will be supports and trainings and
Absolutely.
things to make it, to talk to your legislators and all of the fun things.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
And
here is the presentation request. Like I said, we can do this. This was more about what are the adequacy studies. Can talk about where we stand, where Colorado ranks, et cetera. But this, we'll tailor the presentation to whatever y'all need.
I highly recommend, this is a good way to bring the advocacy work from this committee back to your local. And Katie.
Yeah, I had one like comment and then two questions for Lisa. One is just like when I went when the two studies presented to the joint education committee, and one of the things that I got out of it, just like trying to become more fluent with like how to talk about the studies and what we need to do with them, is just that like they do have two different recommendations. They have two different numbers, like their recommendations, one of them has like that higher base funding and the other one has like more weights. And that is really intentional, that they asked for two different studies that have two different methodologies. So really like the two studies together are a really useful tool to like for us to take what's in both of those and then tease out, okay, what do we want to do and what kind of laws do we want passed? So they're not designed, they were never going to come out with like the exact same thing, but they do have a lot in common. And so that was something, just like just knowing that helps me, I think, like if people are asking me questions, like why are they different? And then my two questions are, can you share who the legislators are that we do really want to target? And then the advocacy day in April, what will that look like?
So the folks that we are targeting, well, there's two reasons to target, and this is, I'm glad you asked that to get me to talk about this. We hope that a lot of people will talk to their legislators, well, whether they are targeted or not, because it really is important to get them grounded in what this is about and to see that their local folks care about it. Then the second part is that these teams that we're going to build, this is what's going to make it different from all the other times in the past when we've done things in the legislature, is that we are really intentionally building these teams that will continue on and be the teams that hold legislators accountable, and maybe we'll carry petitions, and we'll be, being a speakers bureau in their community to explain what this ballot measure, whatever it may be, is. And so your district is targeted in that. We would love for you to take the lead and start building the team and getting a relationship with your legislator, and really getting on the radar. The people who are specifically targeted are some of the more influential, and especially what we're hoping for is a legislative interim committee. And a legislative interim committee there is a current committee called the Legislative Council Committee. That's a year-long committee of the leadership of both houses on with both sides of the aisle. And they decide what happens in the interim. And so we are focusing on them, and we are focusing on some of our rural senators, because those are they've each got around 30 school districts in their own legislative districts. And so to hear from all of them would be really powerful. And because there are 4 rural legislators on at least on the legislative council committee. So, that's the goal, that's how we're targeting, but we really do want every one of you to reach out to be part of these teams that we're going to be bringing PTA people and school board members and teachers and, grade ed, our advocates. We're going to be bringing all folks together so that it's not going to all fall on one person, but we are really building the infrastructure for the movement to support and protect public education, which, just in case you don't know it already, there has been the same folks who brought Amendment 80 last year have already filed again to put it on the ballot again to create vouchers. So this is why we're going to build this momentum and this structure so that we are not, building up for a mill levy and then dissipating, or building up for a ballot measure and then just letting. It is building a long-term strategy, a long-term infrastructure and group of people who are ready to really protect public education, which, and again, we may be losing federal funding for education. And so building these teams now and as soon as possible, really important.
Can you say what Advocacy Day will look like too?
Oh, the Advocacy Day, thank you. It is going to be the 2nd or 3rd week of April. We actually want help in designing it to make it something that is really worth coming to. Our experience is that you can do an Advocacy Day, and it turns out that the legislature is like in second readings and they won't let anybody talk to anybody, and it becomes like this, well, why are you here? So we want to make sure that we make it worthwhile for everybody to come in terms of building skills, meeting other advocates, conveying, we'll probably be delivering petitions with stories involved to legislators, so that whether we meet with them, our goal is to meet with them, but even if we don't, it'll be a show of support for doing something about the adequacy study, and we will make it something that's useful to everybody. If you have thoughts about that, Dawn is in the middle of our planning meetings every Wednesday, and so you can, just let us know that you want to help design it so that it really, and I would love to have some PTA folks, so that it really speaks to what you would like to get from spending a day at the legislature with other advocates from all over. All right.
Awesome. And
I'm assuming
yeah,
we don't
reach
have time
out to
for the
me.
video, right, Dawn?
Oh, I can't believe we got so many bills. I did. It's on the Get It Done website, right?
It is
That's what that
not yet
video.
for
Oh,
reasons that that
Okay,
I'll
okay,
talk about on Wednesday.
okay. You know what, then, it's less than 5 minutes, right?
It is.
Let's go ahead, 'cause I think it's inspiring.
Okay.
Imagine a future where every Colorado student has what they need to thrive, a future built with intention and collaboration, based on the science-backed recommendations of Colorado's first ever state commissioned adequacy studies. This is the vision of the Get It Done campaign, a fast-growing movement of parents, students, educators, and other public school advocates. Together, we're urging state legislators to use the adequacy study data to create the Colorado Blueprint for student success, a structured plan to build thriving public schools that meet the needs of every child in Colorado. The Colorado Blueprint for Student Success is the structured plan Colorado needs to create thriving public schools. It's not just a vision, it's a framework for real change.
We'll know schools are fully funded when every child has the opportunity to get what they need from their education. And the truth is that every child has individual needs. I'm willing to be the voice. I'm willing to share on social media, write letters, whatever actions are needed, I would take.
It's this entire ecosystem that has to work together. Part of it is the responsibility of the taxpayers and the residents, but also the part of it is the responsibility of the parents in the community to stand up and advocate for the things they need.
We would have staff who make a living wage, lower class sizes. We would have more mental health support. Enabling that for our students would be a game changer.
I think it would be more technology, field trips, and it will help our programs out.
What a lot of students need nowadays is someone who will be there for them, not judge them, but to say that I'm here for you and it's gonna be okay.
The call to action for all of us to make sure that we are funding our schools fully and fairly.
The Colorado Blueprint for Student Success is the foundation for ensuring every Colorado student has access to the opportunities they need for success. By creating this structured plan, we can move from uneven access to universal success.
Better programs and better technology. Be more technology, field trips, and our sports. It will help our programs out. We have equipment, but I think we need more. We can also have a lot of more motivational speakers to come.
Programs, technology, yeah, definitely more programs, that's for sure.
Right now, access to essential programs and services is not universally available to Colorado students. Colorado schools provide a solid foundation for some students, but too many school districts lack the resources and support needed to give every child the chance to thrive. The Colorado Blueprint for Student Success lays the groundwork for change.
We can't afford to have all the counselors that we would like to have in our schools.
We need money for more mentors. And so it's really important that we do have these adults, these trusted adults that we can go to.
The Colorado Blueprint for Student Success provides the framework to close the gaps in our schools caused by Colorado's chronic underfunding. Imagine classrooms where every student receives individual attention, teachers have the resources to support each child, and programs nurture talents in art, technology, and more.
Having lower class sizes would enable our students to have more one-on-one student-to-teacher time, which is helpful if they're not understanding the content. Things like that, teachers can come in and can help them.
The Colorado Blueprint aligns with legislative efforts like House Bill 1448, passed in 2024, which made important progress toward equitable school funding. Together, we're urging policymakers to take the next step, turning the adequacy study's recommendations into a plan for adequate and equitable investment in our public schools. When the legislature creates the Colorado Blueprint for Student Success, it will give us the foundation to create strong schools and a brighter future for Colorado. What we invest in our children today will shape the future for all of us. Legislators, we need you to meet with your constituents to learn what the adequacy studies mean for your school districts and to approve an interim committee that will create the Colorado Blueprint for Student Success. Parents, educators, and advocates, we need your voices. Together, let's get it done.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I was like, is it still going? Ronnie, I see that you have your hand raised. Can't hear you, Ronnie. If you're still muted, I see.
I'm sorry. I was trying
Oh,
to get things set up effectively. I apologize.
not a problem.
So what I was wondering, and the reason why I asked if they had stopped the adequacy study, because I heard some reports that just came out that they're trying to get legislation passed, not just state to state, but throughout the country to go towards a national voucher program. And I'm wondering, I've been getting some of the legislative bills and stuff that they're looking at, but I'm wondering if any of you all know where they're at on that, you know, because that would definitely affect school funding. And they talked about class sizes. Are they talking about making class sizes smaller or more efficient for teachers to adequately teach all kids?
In terms of the adequacy studies, they're complete, and now what's out there is the recommendations, and that's what we're working on to make sure that they adopt those. The national stuff is, we'll have to see that the executive orders that have been that is out on vouchers does not do anything. It tells the secretary, who has not yet been confirmed, to pursue vouchers. Don't know well, this will not go away. The federal thing will not go away. And so we're going to, advocating for adequate, equitable school funding means public dollars staying in public schools. And so that has been a position of PTA forever. So I don't know if that answers your question, Ronnie, but we will be fighting that fight at the state and probably national level for a while to come. And that's another reason we got to build our teams.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for your questions. I know there's a lot more questions, and you know how to get in touch with Lisa, and she gave you the contact information for the campaign. But we have a lot more business to do tonight because we didn't meet the last Monday of January. So I'm sorry, but we need to move on.
Thank you for the opportunity. Sorry for the going over.
No, thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for presenting. And this has been recorded. I'll get with Crystal to figure out how to get it up on our YouTube and all that too. So thank you, Lisa. I really, really appreciate your
Thank you,
time
Lisa.
presenting tonight. Sorry?
I just said thank you to Lisa for making that
Yes, thank you.
easy to understand.
Yes. So my liberal arts brain understands the words you say. So thank you.